And we're back, guys. I was going to mess up the number. It's actually episode 26. I was going to say 25. But because we're bringing in guest interviews, by the way, go check them out. We've got first episode with Kevin Duffy from Recomp. And he talks about his journey with Nathan. So go check that out as well. This week, we have obviously Emily, aka White Jay Shetty, Swedish Jay Shetty, female Jay Shetty in the building. And then we've also got Nathan Johnson.
Let's just
over
clarify
here
that, please.
I
am no nun. I was just saying that I should probably flash my tits so that people know that I'm serious about this, but I'm going to to the imagination anyway. So
yeah. So just to clarify for the listeners out there, so Emily is not a monk. She is not Jay Shetty. Although, you guys, I'm going to call her Jay Shetty from now on anyway. So I'm going to run with that.
I'll take that as a compliment. I won't take it as a...
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, is it? Like,
but I'm just saying I'm single. I want to be able to mingle. And if people think I'm a nun, you know...
off limits. Off limits.
It doesn't do me any favors, so...
100%. So we're back again with another episode. This one's going to be a big one. We wanted to get into social media, the rise of influences, and as well as that, body positivity. Obviously, for the last 10... can you say 15 years now, social media has just gone on the rise. There's new apps every single day. You've gone from TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and there's always a lot of things happening from that viewpoint. So one thing I'm going to say is, we're going to dive deep into it. We're going to talk about body positivity from today. So Emily, let's start off your experiences with social media, and we can also discuss body positivity as a whole as well.
Oh, wow. I mean, as we just said beforehand, this is such a huge topic. I mean, I've gone from being the most insecure little girl, my journey of becoming confident has been lifelong, right? Or, so I'm so happy that social media was not present when I was young, because I think it would have killed me. And I grew up in a family, I didn't get to buy those OK magazines. So I didn't actually get those references really. And so, body confidence and social media. I think what I've done, and I realized at some point, I know especially after my very first prep, my self-esteem was very low. And my actual body image was very obscured. And I had what you would call orthorexia, right? I didn't really... my perspective of what was true and what wasn't was a bit obscured. So at that point, I had to actually just unfollow everything that would trigger me to not feel good about myself. And to this date, I don't really follow a lot of people based on their looks, right? I don't follow fitness models because they inspire me. And I think a part of what I've done with a lot of coaching clients in the past is actually to get them to delete those kind of people, because they don't serve you. They don't inspire you to be better. They just push you down and actually make you think of what you cannot have because you can't be another person. So yeah, that was my long to short story about social media. I don't follow a lot of people. I follow people based on their message. So of course I have a couple of fitness people on there, but it's because I genuinely think they say good things, and then they happen to be beautiful and be successful, but that's not why I follow them.
No, I spent a year off social media in 2019, and having come back on now because of the business needs, I felt a horrific pull when I came back on it. If you go away for a year, you go and travel around the world and you use your phone for Google Maps and WhatsApp, and that's what you use it for. You realize there's a lot more to the world than what we seek out, and also how much of a pull it is. I don't personally think that people that are below our generation, so let's say, for example, 5 years from below us, will know the difference and ramifications of the differences between having social media and not having that pull of body positivity or whatever it is. Because as they say, first generation, they create it, second generation is the transition, the third generation just think it's normal. So therefore, the people that are below us, I don't think they're going to know any difference, but we're in that middle ground for technology, but we're also in that middle ground for this social media thing that is going to play with most of us that are in this generation. For when I was off it, I wish I would have used the time more productively. I spent it probably more deep into work as opposed to enjoying what the delights of the world are. So if I was to do this again and do what I do again, I would definitely practice things a little bit differently. but coming back on has made it really difficult to understand what I wanted versus what was thrown in front of me. And there's a blessing and a curse that you will see things that you might desire upon social media, and some of that might actually be something that you do desire, or it's something that is printed upon you via this medium to desire it externally to solve a specific problem that you've got. Now, I think that obviously on both sides, having that attenuation of a specific thing is also really nice. Like, you know, the likelihood of us business owners having enough money to afford a nice yacht or a villa is really nice. We could have that if we really worked hard enough. And I don't know if we would have that if we didn't have like the social media of seeing people like yourself or seeing people expose yourself to that. So it has that positivity of like, oh shit, if he's got one of those motherfuckers, I'm going to go and get one too. And maybe it's actually really good. So there's that upgrading of life if you want it. But at the same time is that it causes a lot more people that aren't in that specific situation, or they don't have that specific constructs to be able to go and do those things. It creates that gap between what they can achieve realistically in the real life when they switch off the phone to what they can do in the reality of social media. So it causes that construct. But for people like ourselves, probably where we are in our businesses and what we do, we can, if we wanted to go and get the things that we see on Insta, you could go and get them. But for people that may not be in that fortunate situation, maybe you're 16 and you're thinking that you want to be Kimmy K, then, you know, it's not going to be like, it's not that. You know, Kimmy K's on a different ball game completely, isn't she? You know,
She just made a bill this week. Oh, she's now officially a billionaire.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that she's not the first one was the best thing out of all, because she obviously she was gunning for the first billion. Obviously, Kylie Jenner was there. But yeah, so that, I think for me that's what the realm of it. I mean, in terms of body positivity, I think.
So the question I got asked about body positivity actually was a really good one. It was like, what are my thoughts on it? And again, we wanted to kind of discuss it here. And is it a fad, or is it destructive in that sense, or is it actually positive?
I'll go first because I normally just have an outrageous statement, right? And then you guys can pull it back in. I think it's not a negative to be comfortable in your body, but if you do have health conditions or you're on the verge of not being as well, I mean, you can do what you want with your body. That's important. But are you getting into the body positivity crew because you don't want to make improvements and go through challenges? That's a different attenuation. Like if you're like genuinely happy with the way that you look, that's body positivity anyway. You don't need to be part of a movement to do so. You can just appreciate your body. But if you're being part of the body positivity group to justify potentially eating, justify the unrelated emotional issues that you have, then I think that's a negative, because you could be better. There's nothing stopping you from being better. And I think that a lot of this comes down to probably not wanting to go and do some hard work or some challenging behaviors or work through those things. So I think in one sense, like it could, like I'm all for not having a fucking veins on an ab 6-pack all the time. Like I'm sporting a just about a Sporty Spice 4-pack, and like I'm very, very happy about that. But you know, not going to see me put it on Instagram, but I'm okay with that because I know the trade-offs of going to both ends of the spectrum. Like too much love handles, feel shit for yourself. You know, your body, your sleep goes out of whack. Your tiredness more often. Go to the other end of the spectrum, and you start taking away your life, and you're eating chicken and vegetables for the rest of your life, and then you only think about your body. There is a balance between the two, but I think you've got to know that to be able to go, okay, I'm happy where I'm at, but I don't know if everyone experiences that particular thing where they're comfortable in themselves. So people just will attain to it, or they'll go and chase something that is unchaseable, like forever looking like the people that are on Instagram, because it doesn't happen.
Yeah. What do you think about it, Emily? Like the body positivity movement and how it's, because obviously it's been around for a long time. Like I was actually researching this and I was like, I didn't realize it's been around for a long time. And obviously now with social media, it's a lot more prevalent. Like you can hashtag it on Twitter, you can hashtag it on Instagram, and suddenly it's like, it's a massive thing. And also, do you remember, I think a couple of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there's the Protein World had an ad about a bikini, and it was very controversial. And it was like, and again, loads of people are on that. I don't know, I'll try and get up for you guys. We can have a discussion on it, maybe part 2. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this going forward? And obviously coming from a female perspective as well, it'd be good to hear your kind of thought pattern on this.
I mean, I completely agree with Nate here. You know, there needs to be, and I genuinely think we need to draw a line between body positive and self positive, because there's two different things. You should feel good about who you are, and that should not be a reflect, like your body is not necessarily who you are. And therefore, if you're going to go and say body positive because you're not happy with who you are, then you're actually never going to do the work. And again, as Nathan says, like, you justifying being actually if we take your blood, physiology doesn't lie, right? So it's like, of course there's going to be a grayscale. You can be a bit like puffy and still be healthy, and that's completely fine. Like, you can, as a woman especially, you can have curves and you're healthy, and that's okay. But it gets to a point where it's like, actually, are you just justifying staying where you are because you don't actually want to face your actual issues, which is actually going to be health problems eventually? Now, I don't think that we should shame people, and especially not people who are overweight, because actually, if we shame them, what are the likelihoods of them actually feeling good about self then? Because I don't think fat shaming is the solution to anything. And literally, and also people will start the process over and over again. And I mean, they might not have found the right crew or people or coaches that actually help them properly. But the fact is that we don't know what that other person is doing, has done, tried in the past. We don't know. And so by actually judging someone, that's also wrong. But in terms of body positivity, I just think celebrate who you are as a person and then work towards being in a good health. And then again, if you're not happy with the way you look, work on it instead of trying to, reframe it in a way like, actually, if I can just love myself as I am, as in like the body I'm in, then it's all good. So you have to, I really think if you separate the two, it doesn't really matter. And like, I think if I can pull on myself here as well a little bit, like, I'm the heaviest I've been for probably 4 years now. And of course, I'm still not in the out of shape, but I'm like a normal person. And I like myself equally, like the self inside. She's still there, exactly the same person as she was when she had abs and like shredded. And I think that's the thing. If we need to really separate the two. You are still yourself, regardless if you're heavy or not, but your body is still a reflection of the choices that you make on a daily basis. Now, I'm very full aware of, like, I've been eating chocolate, I'm not tracked anything, like I'm fully aware of my choices. And at some point it goes to the point like, oh, okay, you've gone too far, let's rein it back in again. But yeah.
Isn't it like, you totally agree on that, and then when you start feeling a bit like, when you start feeling guilty and anxious about the decisions you're making that affect that body positivity, isn't that the bit that you're like, maybe it's not right for me? It's not like, that's the bit that kind of cuts it off. So like, you can be all fine and dandy, and if you're making your decisions and you're happy with them making your decisions and you're comfortable with who you are, but in essence, I would think that the moment that you start feeling guilty about the decisions you're making and start thinking about, oh, maybe I should have made that different one, then that uncertainty and that guilt is probably what is the determining factor whether it is actually body positivity and the positive movement of your body, or it's the inability to own up to the challenges that may be faced by making change.
Yeah, and I think it's like having body positivity is like, it's just another way to remain in that comfort zone, right?
Yep.
And the thing is, guilt is a sign of something needs to change. Like, either it's your perception of what you're doing or what's not happening, or that you actually need to make some decisions about not eating so much chocolate and drinking wine every night, and I really think that at the point you will have that kind of biofeedback where it goes, actually, I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable now. Right, now I need to probably do something about it. And me still loving who I love what I look like right now. I do feel like I'm probably catfishing people on Tinder.
got your abs out on there, right?
Yeah, honestly, I have my abs photo. I'm like, I should probably take that down because but I still, it's still part of me. And I think it comes to the point, and actually, if I think that way, like, ooh, can I even have that photo on there? Then maybe I have an issue, right? But I keep it on there because I don't care. Like, if they meet me and they go like, whoa, I'll be like, hey, you're not the guy for me.
And here's a life lesson for all people that want to go through dating: always take the girl swimming. For the first date. I just got back on Hinge and Tinder actually in Dubai, and that was worse for my body positivity and my mindset than anything else. I realized that by just going back on those apps, I'm waiting for someone to like justify me being like good by
Who you are.
swiping right. I'm like, motherfucker, I no swipe right. I've just spoke to Elliot. He's just got some matches in Dubai. I put my location to Dubai, and now it's like, but I'm
You're
not
gonna get the same matches.
Yeah, we're going on a double date and both go together.
Yeah, you're gonna get the same matches and you're gonna fight for the same women. That's what's gonna happen.
So
You
I
end up on
think-
one date. What's gonna happen? One date on a Monday, it's gonna be Elliot, and then you on a Wednesday. She's like, hold on, I've just seen them both on Instagram doing a live together.
yeah, in the same house as well, right? No.
Yeah, taking a selfie to her. She's seeing double at that same time. She's like, hold on, is this right? Am I taking the craziest drugs in Dubai or what?
But I think when it comes to body positivity, I think there needs to be a gradient of appreciative where you are, right? There isn't like the perfect self and that's who you are. It's like you have to appreciate that there is a gradient to who you are, and that you can push for something incredible in terms of like physical peak performance and state, but there still needs to be a level of like, I still like who I am in some of these shapes, right? So I do think like body positivity is important, because otherwise, especially if you've done something like a transformation journey and you're slightly coming out of it, like you're not going to like yourself if you can't like who you were when you came into that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I really think that there needs to be a level of like appreciation throughout the whole journey of every step, especially if you are in a transformation journey where you might have started off at being 125 kilos as a female and you're coming down. You should love yourself as being 100 kilos, because that's still better than 125. So you should have body positivity as you're working towards something, but it shouldn't be, you know, body positivity because I'm going to stay here. It's like a positivity to appreciate the work that you do and see that your body is the result of those choices.
Sometimes people justify, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I'm at this way. I want to like justify like, oh, it's body positivity. Sometimes people use that as an excuse than anything else, in my opinion. Then you guys both mentioned it's like, are you just scared of working hard towards getting that place? And I think that's where most people sometimes get to that place where they're like, I'm just scared of, you know, not working hard enough to get to that position. Sometimes also people use it as like a tool on social media now, right? Because it's like hashtag body positivity.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
More than anything else. It's
with a tub of Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like, oh, you know what? Why not? Someone else is doing it. I can now do it. So I think sometimes it's that, but you guys said it 100% correctly. It's like physiology doesn't lie. So if you actually went out and did a blood test, like, you know, there's obviously, we can talk about like the plus size models in a bit as well and so on. If they did a blood test, and obviously, you know, if someone else did a blood test as well, it'd be like, look, this is where my bloods are at. I need to do something about it, because ultimately I can't carry on like this, because otherwise I could drop dead in 20 years time. Then what?
But that's also reframed that the other way around as well. Like in the 90s, right? It was the heroin chic or whatever it was, whenever like all the models were
Victoria's Secret. Yeah.
What was it?
It was the Victoria's Secret.
Yeah.
Was it one size model kind of thing? Yeah.
Zero. Zero.
There were supermodels dying because they had anorexia, and that was like being looked upon as the glorification of a body image, right? So of course it can definitely go to the other side of the spectrum, and either side of the spectrum at some point will kill you. That's just how it is. So again, we need to come back into some like middle ground and go like, what is actually health? Because it should be health positive, really. And yeah, but that's just
I think I think that the rebuttal to that on the other side, being super fatty back in the day myself, would be that you've got a choice of whether you want your health to be good or bad. Like you want to die at 40 versus die at 80, that's your own choice. So therefore, they're not even thinking about the whole health ramifications. They're thinking, oh, well, in the moment, this feels right. So then therefore, I'm going to do it. So therefore, you can have that. You can have that. If you want to die at 40, die at 40. I'm not going to, but you can, and that's fine. But also don't encourage other people to do the same thing, but they don't know that they're going to die early. Like not many people know that the fact is that your cholesterol will clog up your arteries. If you have it too high, you could get type 2 diabetes and end up being, you know, diabetic for life. And you could then have blood pressure that skyrockets and makes you predisposed to the heart issues.
I mean, we all know that the greatest killers of this day and age is actually heart attacks, diabetes, and like cardiovascular related diseases, which more often than not comes from being overweight.
Yeah. And if you've got the foresight of understanding those variables and you've said to yourself, I don't care, and I'd like to do X, Y, and Z because I don't have those things, then that's absolutely fantastic. You can do that. But the moment that you start regretting that and having guilt in about 5 years' time, that'll be your good learning. And like we said, that the definition between probably right and wrong in this scenario is the feeling of guilt or the feeling of like anxiety and uncertainty about that specific environment. If you've completely, like in anything, when you take responsibility and you take ownership of that, and you're like, I'm happy to die at 40 because I don't care what size I am. It doesn't define who I am. I still know what's going on in here, and that's absolutely fine. And that's fine. And you make that decision, and then you go and do all these things without guilt and without uncertainty, without anxiety. You probably had a really good fucking life, and go for it.
Yeah.
But because of what I know, and because of how I've helped other people understand that there's different layers to this, and there's an ascension type of protocol, which is like, you don't know how shit you're feeling until you're feeling good, then I'm going to go a different way personally. And I will go in the realm of like, there is an optimal body composition, there is an optimal mindset, there is an optimal state to kind of get into, because I know that the benefits of the different levels. But hey, it's always those individuals that are on that bottom tier that can't see the ascension from the top to the top that are always the ones that are trying to get these movements and go through these phases, because they don't see that once they stick with one of them and level up and level up and level up and level up, they get a different perspective, a different layering process to their belief systems, and they get a different outlook on life, which comes from actually like developing. But I don't think this body positivity will develop. I think it's a state. It doesn't develop over time. You don't get more body positive. You're either body positive and you're not guilty around the food you're taking, or you're happy with the way that you look, or you're not. Whereas the stuff that, like, say, we're promoting from a positive health perspective and an increased layer of like, there's always improvements, marginal gains over time. You can always get a little bit better in the areas that you want to improve. It's a different kettle of fish, and all that, even that layering, that system of up and up and up and tiering, includes body positivity as you go through. Like Em said, like she went through a process of like, she got, very, very lean, and then basically your negative body image starts in that place. Like I've been at too. Every pound that you gain above having veins on your abs makes you feel like a piece of shit. Yep. But you still got you still got abs, but it's the perspective of where you've been and where you're coming from that changes over time. And that journey over time, that what Em was speaking about, is the one that creates that layering ascension on perspective, on beliefs, on values. But I don't know if you're happy to die at 40 because you want to live for the moment and don't care about the way that your health is from an internal perspective, go for it. But as soon as you start feeling guilt and uncertainty and anxiety around those variables, give me a call.
Let's go back to Nate, when you started your fitness journey, right? Like, what was that trigger to that? Was it because obviously social media wasn't like super around? Maybe magazines, you looked at it, but was it an internal switch within you that you said, no, I can't carry on like this? Because, and I'm guessing everyone else around you is probably in a similar boat, and you're thinking like, I don't want to do the same thing over here. Like, what was that internal switch?
The internal switch was having to wear a large or an extra large t-shirt of 5'3" for secondary school, Friday own clothes day.
Yeah,
like I opted for the Allen. You'll like this one. A baby blue Allen Iverson tracksuit that was a large on top, but I had to get extra small bottoms because obviously I was 5'3", right? And they don't come in two tracksuits.
You're literally just like dripped out on that.
Yeah, literally, I was literally dripped out. But I had to buy two tracksuits to fit into it because I had to buy the extra small with the non-top, because I had to you had to all buy them in one. You couldn't buy tracksuits half and half back in then. You could either buy the tracksuit or you don't. So I had to buy an extra small tracksuit and a large tracksuit, and I had to wear the extra small bottoms and the large top, and then I wore like a baggy white t-shirt with like a backwards cap, because I used to be like, I think I was like, what did he call a wigger? Do you remember that? But I used to get called a wigger anyway.
Oh.
And basically, when I wore that for school, I remember stepping off the bus and being like, "Fuck, I need to do something about this," because like no guy that's 5'3" needs to be wearing a large t-shirt and it's down to his knees when he doesn't untuck it.
You know, well, you remember that meme? I've seen that meme from this white guy, and it goes, "I fuck on the first date." He's got that t-shirt.
Yeah.
Google that right now, and trust me, that's what all I'm pitching. Right, I'm pitching. I'm gonna send that to him today, I'm gonna put Nate's face on this.
Yeah.
Nate when he was 11 years old. That's what I'm gonna capture it as.
Yeah, no, that's literally, yeah, that's exactly what it was. There you go, with the lunchbox.
Yeah.
Like,
Literally, just hilarious when I think about it.
yeah. So that was my trigger, but again, that does come from external pressures, because you do feel it yourself. But I was happy going home and eating biscuits every single day until the moment I had to go into school without a school uniform on, with around my peers and around my other people. And I was actually reading something today, and like it's Jordan Peterson's new book, and like he talks about the constructs of how society and people around us actually form our values in a positive way. Like they make us reflect and make us have a look at, okay, are we aligning with the people? Are we aligning around us? And by like bouncing off people, by saying like they either follow or they don't interact or whatever, you get this way of like knowing your boundaries. And I wouldn't have took that on, because my home habits were never going anywhere. My dad still has dessert with every single breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No joke. Like literally, still to this day, he'll have his breakfast and whatever it is, and he'll finish it off with a side of 7 biscuits and a cup of tea, and then lunch finishes with an ice cream cone, and then dinner finishes with an ice cream cone and some chocolate. Like that's just the way it is in our house, and he doesn't care, and that's fine. He's never cared. That's the old generation.
Let's say if you were homeschooled, do you think you'd be here right now?
Nah, like I think I would be like 110. I always know if I didn't get into fitness, I'd be 110 kilos. You know that, like that's the way some of my family went. That's the way that the habits lead you, because they weren't a sporty family. I was the sporty one out of the family, but then when my knee injury came, I couldn't do any sports. So therefore, I was just going to go and do what they did, which is sit behind a computer or go to church or whatever it was, and then just eat food and revolve around that. So, without that school environment shaping me, I never got a change. And I think that whole persona of environment being a negative to your feelings, I don't think it exists. I think it's actually the opposite. I think that sure, the environment does change the way that you view things, but it's also like it's a sensory depth for your boundaries of like what you actually want to do. And the more often you can check your priorities, the more often you can check your values, the more you'll actually go in the right direction.
Don't you also think the whole thing about like confirmation bias, right? You will seek out the information that you feel like you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
This is not, I don't know all of the people in this world, so I'm making a huge generalization here, but it feels like people who are going on the body positive train are the people that need some form of justification or like a pat on the back or something, because they're seeking a confirmation on where they are at the given moment in time, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I want to also go back to quickly just before that, schools, because obviously now, Nathan just mentioned obviously like he was influenced slightly by, let's say, his peers potentially, but also the environment that was there, right? Also, you got probably, he wants to date, he wants to, be with girls at that point, etc. He's thinking like, I need to look, my best version of myself here. So even now, right? And now we have double the pressure, right? Because we also have social media. So it's the impact of that. What do you think school should be doing with this stuff? Do you think they have this discussion? Obviously, like we're completely away from this. I don't know if they would have this discussion, but like, it would be interesting to know your thoughts on this, like how you were at school as well going forward. Did you kind of think about like, oh, I need to, change my body, change my physique, I need to get into the gym? Or were you just like, no, I'm just going to get on with this, and then things change? And like kids now, I think a bit different, in my opinion.
I mean, kids are mean. Well, I think for me it was the complete opposite, right? I was literally so small. Like I pulled out my old medical cards. Now, as a 10-year-old, I weighed like 25 kilos. Like I was tiny. Yeah. So I was really small, and I was and I think girls especially have a lot of different things coming at them, right? With puberty, it's completely different, I think, as for men. Men has the little, and that's about it, right?
The squeaky ass voice, right?
Whereas women, we have to experience so many things like in the face of becoming a woman. But I was the latest one of all of my friends, and also at this point I was also bullied, so I was like, it was a double whammy for me. I was pretty lonely, and so I didn't like myself puberty because I was so skinny. And then all of a sudden, I actually remember this so well. I woke up one day and all of a sudden my entire ass was purple from stretch marks. Boom. Like, so I like, then my booty started growing, which I appreciate today that I started to actually get like some curves a little bit, but that itself.
Nathan goes
The
way beyond.
blessing of God. The blessing of God. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that was tough. But I think for like girls, like for me, like I never had tits. So for me, like being the one who didn't need the bra forever, you know, all of these things that become you are so self-conscious. So I think I went from being the really skinny girl with like the really boyish kind of body that, you know, had no confidence at all, to deciding that, well, first of all, then when the ass started growing, that was also an issue. It's like you want an ass, but you don't want an ass, because it's like, you know, it's kind of like how it goes. But then I was always sporty, so for me it was the opposite. Like I was always really active, but I decided to join the gym purely because I knew that how am I going to change the way I look unless I actually physically do something that will make me change, right? So it really started from a place of like, I don't like the way I look. I don't think that anyone will find me attractive, and like I didn't really know my self-worth. And so, you know, we probably talked about this in the past. I've definitely talked about this in like our interview series that will come out. But the level of like growth that came, that I didn't know would come, that you guys also know that you didn't know would come when you started going to the gym, like, yeah, I like the way I look, but I'm not like huge. I'm not like a crazy fitness model. I kind of look normal to most people, especially today when I'm not shredded. But I love the way I look, and I love who I became. But my journey was long, like long, very long. And what would the schools have, like? I don't know what the schools would be able to do. I really don't. And I think that's the issue today. Like, what can the schools actually do? Because the bullying doesn't happen inside the classrooms; it happens outside. So yeah,
I'm not sure if you change it. I'm not sure you get rid of it.
I don't think you can. But also, I think it's the nature of juvenile behaviors, right?
Yeah, they'll always go through that, right? Like,
Yeah,
you think about it, you know, as they get older, it just completely eradicates. It's like it's almost like you know, in the Amazon, you're trying to be the jungle of the pack or whatever. Every kid's trying to be that person, especially guys. So if that means bullying one kid for me to be like the king of the classroom or whatever, I'm gonna do that, right?
yeah.
So it's natural for I think for them to do it, but obviously some of them go a bit too far, which then, you know, shapes how that next kid will then live their life in 20 years time potentially.
Yeah, it's that the hierarchy of moving up the hierarchy, but the modalities of bullying change, right? That's the issue. It's the modalities that have been accessible that changes the outcome. Because back in our day, maybe you get a yogurt and apple thrown at you and some harsh words, but nowadays you get beat up. You get potential knife crime or gang violence, and then also you get it when you go home as well, because it's social media is arguably, it doesn't switch off, right? I couldn't imagine getting bullied. I do remember getting bullied via MSN when MSN was first. When like some of the guys that were at school, they got my MSN, they started like chatting shit about me when they're in the MSN names. You know, when you used to put like, oh yeah, the love hearts, the emojis and stuff like that, and the different people in there. Well,
Put your music tracker next to it, right?
Yeah, they used
currently,
to talk their shit about me on there. And I remember that, and that was very, very hard, because you were going home from it, then you were coming into it at the same time, because you wanted to speak to those girls, like, you know, on MSN. I remember their name, Rhiannon on webcam. I remember her from Warrington back in the day. Like, she broke my heart. But like, you know, when you get that and you're like, oh, you know, you want to speak to that, but then the next minute you're seeing other people pop up and they start talking shit. And then they start talking shit in school to you as well. It just becomes all encompassing. So I can't imagine the modality that it is today. And I think if you need anything, then instead of looking at the juvenile behavior that will come because of the behaviors that are of human nature, which we cannot control, we can only confine the outcomes, which is by, I think, controlling the modalities. If we can control the modalities in which they utilize and how they utilize them, then maybe there becomes something that will be able to be controlled to a certain point. But that would be, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think it'll be very, very difficult. But I also think, like, yeah, there's a lot more social media bullying right now than anything else. I don't think people have fights that many times. I think it's more of a case of like, I'll see you later on kind of thing. And it'll be like social media, it'll be like some sort of meme, whatever. And then that goes viral and then that person gets bullied. So like you said there, MSN was huge. I remember in my high school, I think it was maybe year 9 or year 10, we actually had a presentation on one person who got bullied. And we're like, why, we can't be doing this on MSN, or why are we going to do this on social media? Like that was like the first, I remember that like, a good now 10, 12 years ago, basically. That was the first time. And shout out to my high school back then because they did it. I'm not sure what they're doing now probably for it, but I reckon they probably should have more and more of this. We actually had one guy talk about social media back then as well, because Facebook was really huge back then as well. If you guys remember, like Facebook was huge, especially for like our generation.
Yeah.
And I remember like there was actually a whole presentation on this, and I think I don't know what they're doing now. Obviously, I'll speak to probably more parents about this, but I do think, it's the troubles of social media. I remember for me personally, like even for me, like getting into like the whole body transformations and getting into the fitness world, it was slightly driven by social media. I'm not going to deny it. Like I think mainly through YouTube actually. So it was the fitness YouTubers that I still probably watch to this day, and they're still influencers to this day for me, Christian Guzman and Rob Lipsett. Like those two inspired me to make a change. And it was a weird one because I also followed IG, but they weren't like that big on IG. IG wasn't big anywhere like 6-7 years ago, right? It was just like you post a pic and that was it. But YouTube was a big one. And I don't know if YouTube is still like, it's probably still a huge influence for most people. But I remember for me at that point, maybe 6-7 years ago, basically, even 8 years ago, it's something that I religiously watched. And I was like, this is what I'm going to try and like keep watching. But it was a good influence for me at that point. And then obviously you come to a conclusion on how you want to live your life and what makes you happy with the certain things. But I could say for me, social media did influence it, but I also wanted to make internal change, right? It was similar to like Nate. With my family, no one was like sporty. It was me who was sporty, but I didn't have the physique for like, actually essentially playing sports. And then everyone else around me, like, didn't really take care of themselves after, hit 25 plus. Everyone just kind of, you know what, occasionally, I walk here and there, but it was never like, oh yeah, this is now my identity. So it was also that element that kind of tied all into together. So social media, family, and then essentially like going against the norm kind of fit it in for me together. Because I think social media is interesting. I think we can definitely do like a part 2 on this with influencers and the rise of influencers now. I think, there's obviously, you get paid to be on social media, which is a different story.
It's a job.
Right?
And also
it's a job.
all of these bot accounts, right, that are like virtual influencers, have you guys seen any of those?
I get loads of business ones.
Yeah.
Like these are like actual virtual accounts that millions of people follow, and there's like a life, but it's a virtual person, and they create a life that people just like they use as an influencer. It's pretty cool. But also a little bit scary. Like, huh?
It's a made up person.
Yep.
It's a made up person. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. Truth be told. Obviously now, like we have, like, let's say if you want to meet someone anyway, right? You have Zooms. You have so I think like catfishing is rare. I can't say it's not rare, but it's still very, very rare now purely because of everything that's around us. If you get catfish now, I would say you got to do you got to like do something about it. Like,
it's on you, son. It's on you.
If you get catfish today, you're the idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you can't. Yeah, you got to get on FaceTime. You got to get on like whatever. Like you got to do your actual homework beforehand. Like you can't just say I'm now in love with this person, or I'm gonna transfer 10K over to this business manager because they're gonna do whatever, and then you figure out it's a scammer from whichever country it is. So that can be interesting as well. But I definitely want to dive deep into part 2, and I want to dive deep into influencers now. And again, there must be some sort of pressure with those guys as well, right? You're getting paid to look good. There must be something going on over there as well, like mentally with them, and how they kind of deal with it specifically, and then the influence they have on the younger generation, and also things like supplements, and you see like fit teas and ketones and all of these little things that I think we can do another whole massive podcast on at the same time.
I think we should.
Definitely start next one with the plus size models.
Yeah, plus size models, and I think we'll definitely dive deep into obviously influencers as well. So, and we'll probably try and get some influencers on a pod. I do want to discuss loads of different things with them, so we should be able to get a few at the same time. So, yeah, we'll be back, guys, next week. Subscribe, follow, whatever you want to do, whichever it is on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and then yeah, until next time, take care.